The information and opinions presented in this podcast are based on research done at a particular point in time. The fields of medicine, surgery, psychology, etc. are constantly evolving as new studies and movements happen. Please take into account the year of any particular episode's publication, and as new information presents itself, we will do our best to release updated episodes on the topics. Listener discretion is advised for references to medical terminology of body parts. Unless otherwise stated, no one speaking on this podcast is a medical or legal professional and cannot provide medical or legal advice. Welcome to the Trans Field Guide. In preparation for National Coming Out Day on October 11th, we will be presenting a collection of coming out stories from various people in the community. Please take this opportunity to learn from the experiences of others. Thank you.
I should probably introduce myself, because now I'm going to have done 2 of these podcasts, and I haven't actually done a proper introduction yet. So, my name is Blake, and I'm a middle-aged trans woman. I came out in a flurry about 2 years ago and immediately started hormones at that time. But really, my coming out was a long process, because I wasn't one of those people who could say, oh, I knew from when I was a little kid that I was the opposite gender. That was not me at all. I didn't have that kind of self-assuredness of my decision. There were a lot of little things over the years, of course, and I think in hindsight that's true for just about everyone. There's always signs, right? Once you start looking for them. But in my mid-20s, I was watching a show. The show was called Dead Like Me. And in one of the episodes, the protagonists were trying to help someone pass on to the next life. And it so happened that this person was stuck here on the mortal plane because they hated God. They were cursing God. And the reason they were cursing God was because they were exceptionally distraught and upset that they had been born a male. And by the end of the episode, I was like, God, that really resonated with me. And since I'm a huge anime fan, I was already well aware that trans people existed and that people could transition. But I guess I never really had a fully formed idea of what that was like, or what it would entail, or how it would feel. I only had really terrible representations of those things. Like, there's a side character in a cartoon show called The Oblongs, who's treated both as the butt of a joke, but also with sympathy. And that's the kind of thing that was around at the time. Not that today's a whole lot better, but yeah, today's a whole lot better. So I held on to it for years. And it was just one of those things. It's like, I wish things were different, but they aren't, and I can't change that. So I'm just gonna cope. And I'll consume the kind of pornography that I like, and I'll just live life and get through it all. However I could. And I did. I lived quite like a robot for about 15 odd years. And I found love, I found a partner, and we're still together. We got married eventually, we had a kid. And it was having the kid that really brought everything into the focus. Because then I found myself taking over every single maternal role that I could conceivably could. Late night feedings, being the primary caretaker, changing all the clothes, making all the schooling and daycare arrangements, just whatever I could do as a parent, but also in the more traditional maternal aspect, I took on to myself and I pursued completely. And of course my wife was fine with me doing this. She was so grateful not to have to do these things. And so it wasn't an issue for her until she went out for a spring break related thing, leaving our house. And I was alone for a little bit. And using Amazon, I rush ordered a number of things to my house, some breast forms, some clothes, And I hurriedly put it all together and, explored some of these feelings I was having all of a sudden. And she came back. And I was looking around the house, thinking to myself, oh my gosh, look at all of this long black hair in the house. It's all over the bathroom. It's all over the bed. She's going to think I had an affair. And so I decided to come out to my wife instead of trying to face down an accusation of sexual infidelity. And of course, being the people that we are, everything was fine. We are both very liberal people. We both considered ourselves bisexual. And by all accounts, we just really get along. And so it was no big thing. She wanted the best for me. I was a little bit nervous about the family. Even though I shouldn't be, really. A white Jewish family is not the hardest to win over. But I was still nervous. There was a lot of things that could go wrong. I have a very large family, very full of cousins, and we still have relationships who live over in, like, Russia and other European countries. The diaspora definitely affected our Jewish history. We're everywhere. And so I knew my mother would be fine with a little bit of time, and she was. My father, however, he had already passed away. And back when he was still living, back long ago when I was in high school, he had turned to me and told me that, well, he didn't say it in specific words, but the tone of his voice was, it's okay that my sister is a lesbian. And by my sister, I mean his sister, my aunt. But it's not okay if his kid is gay. And I was like, okay, great. Thanks for sharing with me, Dad. Because I didn't identify as gay at that time. And I identified as bisexual, and I was dating women in high school. So why did it come up? Why was it a thing? And why did it need to be said to me at all? But I can't ask him that now. I can't get that kind of closure or resolution. And I worried then what some of the other family members might think. Because if my dad were alive, I think to myself, he would have come around. He would have been okay. But I don't know for sure. And now I'm worried about the rest of the family. How would they feel? But fortunately for me, everything went pretty well. I publicly came out to the world at the 1.5 year mark on hormones, which coincided with me losing my job. But my family was overwhelmingly supportive. I've got nothing but heart emojis and love, and it was fantastic. And I got to start being myself in public, in full view. And immediately my cousins turned to me and started including me in women's outings and things of that sort. There was an offer for me to be a bridesmaid. I turned it down because I wasn't ready. But I got included in all the bachelorette things and all sorts of other little odds and ends that I obviously hadn't been involved with before. It was lovely. And now, on the other side though, coming out cost me my job. The story's a little bit more complicated than just that, but that's the gist of it. And it took me a full year to land on my feet. I was unemployed. And it was soul-crushing. It really affected my self-esteem, and I deal with it constantly now. I have a lot of added stress in the back of my mind related to my work and my work performance, and my fears about that. Any kind of change in my workplace is a nightmare for me. I didn't have anxiety before, but I certainly have some level of it now. But there's nothing like it. Being able to be myself, even on my bad days, is a million times better than just being a robot who's listening to society's expectations and putting one foot in front of the other to try and meet them. Go to college. meet a girl, get married, buy a house, have a kid. I did all those things. And in a way, they're great. It's wonderful that I have them. I'm lucky and I'm blessed, and I still have them. But how much better would they have been if I had already transitioned? If I had been who I wanted to be, but wasn't? It would have been amazing. That's what it would have been. Even better. Let's take it from 10 to 11 and make it just perfect. But I can't dwell on that kind of thing, because that's disastrous. That's just going to put me in a bad place forever. So, the past has happened, and I have all these wonderful things to look forward to now. I have a queer community, and I think to myself, it's the most amazing thing in the world. And certainly I'm biased, because I think, all the people I've met in the queer community, they're 1,000 times more interesting and better than anyone I knew before. And of course they get me. And I get them. And there's a lot of support and love. So my coming out story isn't tragic. And it's not the saddest thing in the world. But it was hard found for me. And hopefully, especially those people who think it's, quote unquote, too late, that it isn't. It never is. And you can do it. I don't know what your outcome will be. Hopefully it will be as great as mine. Everyone will stay in your life. Nothing but flower blossoms and love all around. It probably won't. Statistics don't work that way. You might lose your job like I did. You might lose a family member. I don't know. I hope that's not the case. I hope things will be great for you. And so that's my story. And I hope it helps.
Like this episode? Tell someone about it. Resources referenced in this episode can be found in the show notes at transfieldguide.com. Stay safe, and remember that I'm proud of you.